Hi, I'm Rob. Hope everyone had a really good Christmas day. But in this Gems of War video, I'm going to take a look in the Soulforge and tell you what I think is good and bad to buy in there this week, what's worth crafting and what you should avoid. I'm also going to look at the new glory troop we have this week and tell you what I think about that. And if you're determined to craft a mythic, I'll tell you which I think is the best one to craft. Anyway, who hides in the bakery at Christmas? A mince spy. A mince spy. Good enough. No, it's shocking. As usual, but that's the idea. Anyway, first things first, let's take a look at this new glory troop. Rock Demon. Blighted Lands Epic, 400 glory. Only costs 16 to get this thing up to Mythic if you have the glory. It's totally worth doing. It means you get another one of your power level kingdoms onto level 20. It just helps towards getting those power level kingdoms up. The more troops you have on level 20. So just 6,400 glory to do that if you can. But let's take a look at it. Deals magic +3 damage to an enemy with a 20% chance to devour them. Devour is good because it destroys another troop and adds their attack, armor and life to your own. So when that happens, that is really beneficial, especially if you're a newer player fighting a much more harder opponent with higher stats. So can be good. And if the enemy dies, create 12 red dragon gems. So very high potential there for some decent mana cost at the same time. There'd basically be death and blood everywhere. So you can use that spell in two different ways. You can use it on the potluck element where you can cast it on someone with a huge amount of life and armor still, much more than is going to kill them, in the hope that that devour kills them. But you can also use it in the way of if you pick on a enemy with low life and you know that your damage you're going to do is going to finish them off, that you're definitely going to then create those 12 dragon gems to generate more mana for the team. And it does use red itself, so it can actually self-charge, just like a vulture, swooping down, calling its mates over, and everybody tucks into the thing it just killed. So yeah, pretty usable troop, that one, in certain teams, especially for you're a lower level player. Relying on a little bit of an element of luck to get your team rolling can be really good. I'm going to give that a fairly solid 6 out of 10, because the trait's not too bad either. Allied Daemons gain 2 life, immunity to burning and fairy fire, and reduced damage from spells is the best one by 25%. So not too bad. Alright, on to the resources. If you have excess glory left over after doing that, then it's always good to come in here. Grab 10 of these you can. You can grab 10 of these a week and no more. But worth it just for the extra event keys. Really cool. Grab some of them if you can. Now to the Soulforge itself. Let's start with the weapons first. I'm not going to go over all the ones that are here all the time. They are mentioned in previous Soulforge videos, but let's start with the one at the top. Scythe of the Blight. Removes all red gems. If you're a newer player, you may wonder why there's any benefit to that at all, because the gems are removed from the board with no effect. I remember thinking, well, what's the point of that? That's silly when I was a newer player, but there is a reason for these kind of weapons, and it then deals a certain amount of magic-based damage to an enemy boosted by the gems removed. If the enemy is from Blighted Lands, or if the battle is in Blighted Lands, deal double damage. Well, these are this is the kind of anti-Blighted Lands weapon, and this weapon doesn't use the colour that it removes. The idea is that Blighted Lands, the enemies there tend to use red more than anything else. So by removing the colour that they like the most, you are making their job in getting mana for their spells that much harder. It's just that much tricky. So you can do that and actually hinder the mana progress of the team, while making it obviously better for yourself, because you would craft a team which doesn't use any red to benefit from this weapon the most, and do extra damage if the battle is in Blighted Lands or the enemy is from Blighted Lands. And that is why those weapons can be really useful. Doom Staff. I don't like this one. A lot of people think, when you see Doomed in front of a weapon name, it must be good, but it's not always the case. This one's actually a bit rubbish, I think. Create 4 yellow gems plus 1 gem per tempering level. Give magic +1 armor to all red allies, and if the enemy has a Doom, eliminate all armor from a random enemy. So you're only going to get armor to your team if they use red, You're only going to eliminate the armor from an enemy if they have a doom. And even if this was tempered all the way, there's still a chance you could create all those yellow gems and create absolutely nothing. And because you're creating yellow gems, you obviously have to have other allies on your team that use yellow, because this uses red. It's, yeah, not my favourite weapon. There probably is a use for it somewhere, and it's designed for a very particular use, but yeah, quite situational. There's Desdemona's Bolt. Deal magic +3 damage to an enemy, and if Desdemona is on my team, inflict 2 stacks of bleed. It's actually not too bad. It's an okay amount of damage. Bleed is effectively true damage, which occurs every single turn until cured. So, yeah, for that level of weapon, not too bad. What else we got? Fire Staff. That's probably what should have happened to a lot of the devs team over this Crinklemas debacle. Fire the staff, or some of them at least, because that was chronic. And just a quick word on that. I don't know what's going on with the unbanned banned thing still, because I've still heard of some people getting banned who haven't used Kris Kringle at all. The devs think it was related to the treasure maps thing, him getting treasure maps too quick, but even they only said we think it may be related. So may is not like a set in stone word. They think that is the cause, but they're not sure. And his spell has been adjusted. But yeah, I've heard people saying they've been banned who haven't even got the troop. So I think there's further issues in the game. So I'm doing bare minimum in the game right now over the Christmas period until that issue seems to be resolved forever. So just think about that. Yeah, Fire Staff, kind of fitting for what's going on with Fire the testing staff or the non-testing staff. They had like 2 buttons in front of them: test, don't test. Nah, don't test, it'll be alright. It wasn't alright, it really wasn't. Anyway, Fire Staff deals damage to an enemy, deals a double damage if there's a firestorm, and then creates a firestorm. So if you get to cast this twice in a row quickly, you are guaranteed a firestorm to get that double damage if there wasn't one in the first place. So not a bad weapon at all. What else we got? Deathspire. Sounds like a scary name, doesn't it? Deathspire. It turns out it's not actually that fantastic at all. Deal a low amount of damage for a damage to all weapon to all enemies, boosted by all enemy towers. That's a lot. Boost ratio is ×8, so even then it's not a massive improvement, but it's okay. If you pick this up as a newer player, it may be better than other weapons you've got that do the same kind of job. Thing is, for people like me, you have to remember is I'm looking at these things as an end gamer. Like I've got a lot of the weapons. I've got nearly all the troops and things like that. It's like, compared to the weapons I've got, this is lame. If you're a newer player and you pick this up, this still may be by far a better weapon than anything else you might have. So you've always got to take that into consideration when people like me take a look at these troops and weapons, and I do try and think about that at the same time. So it may be better than anything you've got, so don't dismiss it entirely just because it's no good for me. Soul Reaper deals damage to an enemy boosted by Blighted Lands allies, then creates a mix of 6 red and purple gems for each Blighted Lands ally. So again, this one creates red and purple. You see the mana colour is actually brown and yellow. So it's not going to self-generate at all, so you do have to make sure that the other troops on your team use red and purple to benefit from this. So yeah, and that's only if they're from Blighted Lands, so you have to pick a couple of at least red and purple allies that are from Blighted Lands to make this weapon useful. Is that it? It would appear so. Yeah. So yeah, not a huge amount of decent weapons there this time. Nothing essential. There's nothing like a rope dart or a life and death, things like that. There's nothing there which is absolutely essential. So let's take a look at the troops. We'll start with the mythics first and then go to the other ones. Libara. I always try and look on the bright side of mythics. When they appear, like some people say, I'm always saying the mythics are good. And that's because there's no way that a mythic is generally released that is useless. There will be a use for it somewhere in the game, even though it may not be immediately obvious. It may even be in the future, like in the case of Voice of Orpheus. Voice of Orpheus was long considered a pretty rubbish mythic, but then Elementalist class came out, and suddenly he's gone flying up the charts, to me anyway, of how useful he is, just because of his third trait, where he cleanses all allies just by getting a yellow match. This counters Elementalist class absolutely superbly, and Elementalist class is is the best class in the game. There's almost no shadow of a doubt about that. So, but this one, I struggle to defend or make use of because its spell is so just hit or miss. It's actually a decent amount of damage to all enemies and a decent amount of life to all allies, but the thing is, you kind of want to know what one of them things is going to happen. The only use for this I can really think of is if you've got a team where the bread and butter of the team, the sole point of the team is the first 3 troops. So you've got like a 4th slot which is completely vacant, absolutely no use whatsoever, and you haven't got something like the Possessed King, who is always a good thing to put in that sort of situation, because he explodes 2 gems on 4 matches, I think it is. But really good when you've got that vacant 4th slot. But if you haven't got something like the Possessed King, and you have got, something like Libara, then this is okay to just chuck in as a extra sort of helper, if you like, because if this got charged up, and if your other troops aren't charged up, damage to all or life to all can be useful, whichever happens. But yeah, it's kind of a backup troop that sits at the back, and the back of the team, not your core of your team at all. Yeah, it's just nah. Sorry, I'm trying to help it out, but it's difficult to. The Gemini steals life from the 2 weakest enemies, then inflict curse and 3 stacks of bleed on them. This is actually not too bad. Stealing life is true damage, and it has a double effect of when you steal life, you take it from the enemy and add it to your own, so that's really good. And then inflict curse. Curse is a superb trait. I really like it. It's underrated, dispels positive status effects and resets and reduces the cumulative recovery chances of status effects, as it says on the side there, and can apply to impervious troops. So anybody this, for example, can't be devoured and things like that, it makes them devourable, and it's like a really good trait. I like it a lot. So not too bad at all, and a decent set of traits as well. This is some of the best things about it. 3 really good traits. Reduce damage from spells by 25% is excellent. Immune to poison, disease, lycanthropy and deathmark is pretty good. And give 8 life to all purple allies when matching purple gems is not as amazing as it sounds, but it's still better than nothing. So yeah, the Gemini, actually not too bad at all. Who else we got? The Archduke. Deal damage to an enemy, and there's a percentage chance equal to my magic to destroy them, and if they die, summon a lemur. The traits are okay, if nothing fantastic. But the trouble with this troop is, if you're a newer player to the game and you pick this up, the magic level is going to be really low, and it's going to be almost useless apart from that initial damage. Very low percentage chance to get that destroy. Yeah, it's not that great. If you can find a way to boost that magic up, then maybe it's usable in a team where you're going to get a magic boost to all your team. Maybe it's usable if you're a higher level player, but yeah, I don't know. Don't like it. Not a fan of these percentage chance to do things kind of troops. I like things that are set in stone, and I know is going to happen, but that is my own personal preference. Gargantaur. Why? It deals damage to an enemy boosted by all allies and enemies killed. Okay, the boost ratio is times 15. But even when you take that into consideration, it's not a lot. Considering that there's the legendaries out there that do 50, 60, and my same magic ratio in the game to all enemies and stuff, seems ridiculous. Again, like I said earlier, I always find a way to try and find a good thing about these mythics, even if it seems they're initially terrible, but I don't know. This one just seems all around bad. It is impervious, that is quite good. It does gain 8 attack and magic when I take damage, so if you're in a long game where this thing keeps on getting hit and stuff like that, it's going to boost up its magic, but again, you have to be hit for it to boost that up. It's just one of the worst mythics in the game, full stop. Can't stand it. Right, so on with the legendaries now. A quick glance at these in case you fancy one of these ones that are here. Holy St. Astra. Really, really good troop. Absolutely superb. I mean, just take a look at this compared to Gargantaur. Right, let's compare this. She's legendary. This thing, it's gone from my memory. I can't remember where it is. There it is. It's next to her. Does that damage to an enemy boosted by all allies and enemies killed. That is it. You have to have killed people first to start boosting its damage, or lost people on your team. It's stupid. I really don't get it. And it's only 57 damage. St. Astra, only 14 mana cost, 35 life and armor to all allies. Of course, that's not damage, but it makes your whole team mega survivable. Creates a light storm, enchants all humans, and gives all humans a 50% start with mana. It's like, yeah. Much better. Very good indeed. Right, anyway, I'm digressing. Sekma. Love this troop. I used to love this when I was a early and mid-level player. Transforms blue gems to skulls and transforms brown to yellow. Deals magic-based damage to an enemy, boosted by all other allies and magic at a 2-to-1 ratio. So if your combined magic of your whole team is, say, 100, that's going to be an extra 50 damage. So that is significant at the same time. I mean, compare that to Gargantaur. That's like really good. And that's a legendary troop. As well as that, it gains 2 magic on red gem matches and is immune to frozen, which is pretty cool too. So, yeah, very good. Another very good troop indeed, Imp of Love. Magic-based scatter damage and charm a random enemy. If I'm wounded, either bless all allies or give 3 magic to all allies. Really good to gain bonus red mana from red and gain 8 magic on red gem matches. In a team that loops a lot on red or can just get red gem matches full stop, that scatter damage can go really high, and it's really cool that it does the scatter damage first before it charms the enemy. When you charm a troop, it does damage to the troop above and below them. It's basically as if you've turned that troop on its own team and they start bashing their own team up, which is quite fun. I like charm. Yeah. Imp of Love, really good. Hydra, a bit weird. Deals scatter damage boosted by my missing life. I get the idea behind it. It's like the more closer to death it is, the more it fights to survive, so it does more damage. But yeah, the point is, in the actual game, it's very hard to use because the damage goes up the more it's nearly dead. So you have to get hit a lot to basically make it work. Yeah, not very good. I'm not a fan. Right, and apart from that, we've got these summoning stones. There is a really good troop in the purple summoning stones, which is Sunbird. If you're a newer player and you don't have this, absolutely spend a few summoning stones trying to get it. It's one of the greatest troops in the game for a newer player. Really effective at low-level explores and things like that. Deals scatter damage boosted by my life, die and rise from the ashes. So really cool. Try and get that if you can. Anyway, who gets my super coveted, world famous, not, mythic of the week? We've got a right bunch of Hombrights in here this week, haven't we? I mean, Libara can't be that. Absolutely no way it's going to Gargantaur. Archduke, terrible if you're a newer player. Gemini is actually pretty good, so it has to go to the Gemini. Pretty decent mythic. Give life to all purple allies when matching purple gems. Undying, reduce damage from spells by 25%. True damage while buffing your own life. Yeah, pretty cool. The Gemini gets it this week. Anyway, there's the video. If you enjoyed it, why not bash that like and subscribe button. I've got my world event team coming along a little bit later on today, so pop back later for that if you feel like it. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye for now.